So that was Aziz Abusera. He did our opening webinar of the conference this year. So if you missed his session, you'll be able to watch it in the community of practice as soon as we post it. We have we have Laura Holland coming back. She was a really well-received, enthusiastic presenter in our first online conference last year. So we're so happy to have her back. She's been teaching English for nearly 35 years at the University of Oregon. She teaches English language and teacher education in the American English Institute and the Department of Linguistics. Ms. Holland is also the external reviewer and works annually with teachers from ICPNA Chiclayo in Peru. I assume that's the binational center there in Peru. And she has published numerous articles on language teaching, mentoring, and classroom observation, and also co-authored the teacher training guidebook, Shaping the Way We Teach English from Observation to Action, that was published by the US Department of State. She's presented teacher training workshops across the United States, Canada, Peru, Mexico, Bolivia, and Costa Rica. And here to speak with us with the presentation, Questions and Questioning, Classroom Practice, Optimal Discussions, Critical Thinking. Please welcome Laura Holland.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, everybody. Oh my gosh, what's going on, Costa Rica? Okay, last session of the day. You are here. You are in the right place, okay? You are absolutely in the right place. If you've come here today, I've got some questions for you to work on. I'm so happy to see you too. And thank you to the people who are making comments about last year. I had so much fun last year. Now, here's an interesting thing I'm thinking about. Last year was pretty crazy, right? And I remember the title of my presentation last year was, "You want me to do what?" Taking our English language classes online on the fly, meaning with 2 weeks preparation. I had taught online for years, teacher preparation classes and professional development, but I had never taught one language class online before last year. And I had 2 weeks to figure out, how do you do this? And guess what, though? We all did it, didn't we? And we've been doing it all year. And now, doesn't the Zoom seem like a whole lot easier than it used to last year? And my heart doesn't start pounding so much like it did last year. So I have a whole new set of things. So you've already done the first question that I had for you. Where are you all from? But if you've just come, is my sound okay? I just got a notice. It's unstable. Okay. Maybe it's just me unstable. Where are you all from? If you've just joined us, please feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat. And the topic today, questions and questioning. So I want to talk about classroom practice, optimal discussions, and critical thinking. Oops, hold on, I have to move everybody over. There we go. So my introduction and rationale. We're teachers, right? So we ask a lot of questions all the time, all day long. And there are different ways that we can approach our questions and questioning in the classroom with our students and with ourselves. And so in the next 90 minutes, we're going to explore a few together. And then I hope you will come away from this session being able to think about questions and questioning in a new way, in some different ways. Oops. Sorry, just getting used to the new view here. So let's talk about the thinking routine called Think, Pair, Share. Now, I'm pretty sure that most people here know about Think, Pair, Share and maybe use it all the time. But I want to talk about it because I think that it is a wildly underused tool that we have available to us. It's part of a thinking routine and one of many thinking routines that, for example, Project Zero out of Harvard University talks about. And it's just an incredible tool. Now, some of you may remember this story from last year. Personally, I thought I invented Think, Pair, Share, which I kind of did for myself. I had never heard of it. I was a teacher in the classroom for quite a few years, and I started noticing that there were students, we pose a question, and then always it's like, there are 4 or 5 students in the class whose hands shoot up right away. Me. Please, me, I've got the answer. Me, right? So, but then what about everybody else? Now, I know I speak fast, I walk really fast, and sometimes I eat too fast, but I don't think fast and I don't learn fast. So it makes me really empathetic for my students who need some time to think. So, when we pose a question and then we see 4 or 5 students answering right away, we think, oh, they understand the questions. But does everybody? Okay, so that's a question we need to ask ourselves. Is everybody in the room getting what we're saying? So what Think, Pair, Share is awesome for is thinking. It's great for learners who need a moment to think and process and digest the question. Okay, and then we give them a chance to talk in pairs. Now this is face-to-face interaction, but in the face-to-face class, I use this all the time. Okay, think for a moment, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, depends on the question. Turn to your partner and blah, 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 right? And talk about it. And then it gives the students the chance to test out their answers before going public with it, right? So maybe they had the wrong answer the first time, but their partner had the right answer, or maybe together they came to the right answer. So we're giving them a little bit of time to think, change, process. And then when we share, we can call on the pairs to answer. Now, the other thing I always want to give Frank Lyman credit for this, because then I started finding out, I thought I invented this, but then I started going to conferences and doing a lot more professional development. And I started thinking and hearing think, pair, share, think, pair, share, think, pair, share. It's like, oh, that sounds just like what I do. And so then I realized I started doing a little more research, and I found Frank Lyman, 1981, University of Maryland. So Frank Lyman, thank you very much. We are eternally grateful to you. And I will keep bringing your name back up all the time because it's really one of my most important tools. Why? Why is Think, Pair, Share important for our teaching? I think one of the most important things about it also, besides what I just said, is that it gives every student the chance to think and then produce for every question we pose this way. So one of the downsides potentially of Think, Pair, Share is that it takes longer, right? It just takes a little longer. It's a time investment. However, when we pose other kinds of questions to students, do we know as teachers, do we know whether they all have the answer? Not really. If one person answers or 2 people answer, we don't know. We don't know whether everybody's done it. But when we do Think, Pair, Share, everybody is producing. And then I'll say, when you talk to your partner, you can have the same answer, you can have the different answer, but even if you have the same answer, both people need to speak. So then in that way, every student has the chance to produce for every question that we pose this way. So personally, I think it's a wonderful investment. Okay, so now we're going to do, I've already talked enough. Think, Share. So since we're online, we're going to do Think, Share, which is what I've adapted for Zoom. And if you were in the session last year, you will maybe remember this question. I pose this question to every single class I ever teach. Could be basic level English, it could be student teachers, it could be teacher trainers, it could be anybody. Who do we learn our first languages from? Okay, so think for a moment and then type your answers into the chat. I think we'll stick with chat for right now because it will allow our pacing to keep on going. So who do we learn our first languages from? Now, I'm not seeing the chat anywhere because I'm in full view. So will somebody else call out some of the answers for me? There are many answers to this.
Yes, nanny, parents, mom, dad,
okay,
siblings.
Good. Yeah, so many people, moms, dads, siblings, who else?
I saw parents, family.
Parents, family.
our surroundings.
Surroundings, yes, yes, yes. Let's get even more specific. Who else? And who else? And family is a big word. Who in your family are you learning from?
I say babysitter.
Babysitters, yes, absolutely. Are you kidding? Absolutely.
Older
Definitely.
siblings.
Older siblings, for sure. My little brother knew so many things by the time, because he learned everything from us.
Yeah, seeing
Keep going. There's some
grandparents.
more answers. Grandparents.
Grandparents,
Yes.
TV.
TV. Okay. TV, right? So my little brother, again, his first word, mama, right? Second word, Batman. Okay. My father's heart was broken. But then the third word was dada or dad or whatever. But yeah, we learn from all these different sources. Okay. And then what happens? We get into classrooms and suddenly it's a whole different system, right? Our first languages, we learn great. Do we have quizzes? No. Are we sitting in classrooms? No. Do we have to do homework? No, none of that. It's a perfect system. We all learn how to speak our first languages. Almost everybody learns how to do it. But then we get into classrooms and suddenly we've got tests and quizzes and homework and people are sitting in rows and they're sitting like this and textbooks. And what happens? It changes the dynamic completely. And I think it sucks the life right out of the language, right? It changes the dynamic and makes it much more difficult. And people's affective filters, right? You know that term? People's resistance or fear starts rising and rising and rising. And later in this session, Steve Krashen is going to be talking, and he is the one who brought us the whole notion of affective filter. So thank you, Stephen Krashen. So exactly. So when I talk to my students, I do this on the first day of every single class I teach. I ask them this question. Why? Because then I can say, right, so, but your mom isn't here, your dads aren't here, your brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, we're not here. So we are going to be the mothers and the fathers and the friends and the aunts and the uncles and the teachers and the neighbors and the babysitters and all the people who helped us learn our first languages. We are going to do that for each other. And that's a big part of my community building, which I think is critically important for teaching language. So now, another kind of question that we can ask. So we can ask questions to check in with our students, right? And a lot of us are doing that right now. But after this last year, after this just crazy year we've all been living through, or more than a year now, how are you doing? Well, it's not really a small talk conversation anymore, is it? So now in fact, if you think about the question, we might say, how are you? Or now these days we might say, how are you? A little more emphasis on that are. How are you? Meaning I really don't know. Are you okay? Or are you not okay? Please tell me. Please let me know. So some other questions I've been asking with students are, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you today? I will start class with that, especially earlier in the pandemic, when people were just so fearful and scared, or every time the numbers would spike up and lockdown would come back again. So where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And it's really interesting when you ask your students that. Because some are coming in and they're going to say a 1 or a 2 or a 4, and others are saying, I had one the other day who said, I'm an 11 today. And she cheered everybody up. It was really great. And then even at the end of the class, we did it again. And several of the students they said, I came in as a 3, but I'm leaving as a 9. And I thought, okay, we did it. So that's great. Here's another question, just a discussion topic. How do you relieve stress? Every time I've brought that question in for our discussions, I have at least 4 or 5 students who say, this is my favorite question. I love this question. So steal it, use it. You'll get some really interesting answers. Another one is, are you doing okay? Are you okay? And our students really appreciate when we are doing this and when we're asking them and checking in and going on there, just finding out what their emotional states are like. So now, questions we ask to check in, daily check-in. So what I'd like you to do now is use the chat and type in a question that you use or that we could use with our students to check in. Something that you have used in the past or something that maybe just sparked into your mind right now. So go ahead and we'll share a couple of those. The other thing is, while people are typing, do you know, I think you mostly know, I hope people know that you can save the chat from Zoom sessions. And I do that all the time. So I get my students and student teachers to write things into the chat. Then I save it and turn it into a document later and send it out. And it becomes this beautiful shared document that we all co-created together. So do we have some questions?
Yeah, we have quite a few. So
Great.
how was the weekend?
Great.
How has your week been?
Mhm.
Did you have a good night's sleep?
Oh, good.
Is the sun shining for you today?
Oh, that's beautiful.
How's it going? What color describes your mood today?
Oh, somebody's very prescient. You'll be very happy later in the session. What? Say it again. What color?
Yeah, what color describes your mood today?
Okay, very good.
What amazing thing happened to you today?
I love that.
How about your breakfast?
Breakfast. Oh my gosh, breakfast is like the best question. Breakfast is an awesome question to ask students about, especially if you have different languages. But if you don't, we tend to have multicultural classes here in the States, but sometimes I don't. But it doesn't matter because everybody eats different breakfasts. So breakfast is a really rich question. Okay, any others?
Sure. What word would you use to describe your day? What are you grateful for today?
Oh, I love that. Oh, beautiful. You have one or two more, or is that
Oh,
good?
there's plenty. We can keep
No.
going. We have a lot. Yeah. So, how you been feeling lately? Did you have coffee yet?
I love that. Cool. All right. Thank you. So keep adding. You can keep on adding in these, and don't forget to save the chat because you will want to use these because we just got about 50 ideas, right, that we can use and take and put in our own classes. So here's another kind of check-in that we can do. So we can check in at the end of the class. And I know a million teachers here use this, okay? So we can do sort of exit ticket kind of ideas. So here's one I do a lot of times near the end of class. I might say, okay, everybody, please take 3 minutes and write down one thing that you've learned today, one thing that is still confusing, and one thing that you are ready to teach somebody else from this week's class tomorrow. Okay. And so now let's go ahead and if you have some exit ticket kinds of questions or checking in at the end of the class kinds of questions, go ahead and put those in the chat, please.
So while we're waiting for that, there was someone that also said, I know all of my students' pets and I always ask about them.
Right. And you know what? That's been kind of a funny side thing on Zoom. I feel like that. So I think there's been a real silver lining with Zoom and this whole Zoom thing that we're doing now. One is that a lot of people are noticing that it's actually more intimate in a certain respect, as long as the teacher's not talking like this and it's getting really flat and you have no intonation going up and down, right? So if you're actually lively, it can be really intimate and cool. Now, if you have a huge class, it's a little hard because we can't see everybody all the time, but you can have students helping each other and speaking up for other students who maybe aren't getting turns. Anyway, do we have
Yes.
any now?
Yes. So, yeah, did we accomplish our goals for today? What's something you liked about today's class?
Great.
How do you feel about the topic? Did we talk about the comparative form today?
Oh, I love that.
How did you feel with today's class? How is what you learned today going to help you in your daily life?
Oh, that's a great one. They're all good. These are wonderful.
Did you enjoy the activities? Did you enjoy the class? Is there something you would change from the class?
I love that question too, because it's hard to ask sometimes, but actually our students give us great ideas. And again, I'm going to talk about this a little later, but we're human beings, right? I know we're teachers, but we're human beings and we think in certain ways. And sometimes we get into kind of a track or a groove. And so other students, other people's voices and ideas can make us think of something that we would not have thought of on our own in 100 years. So that's another really great reason to be checking in with people. Oh, I know what I was going to finish saying before, though, about the pets is we're seeing everybody's homes, right? We're seeing people's homes, and we're seeing their children sometimes, and we're seeing their pets. And there's something kind of community building about that. So that's kind of a bonus, I feel like an unexpected bonus that's coming out of all these Zoom classes that, doesn't happen when we're all together in the classroom. So I'm going to move on to a completely different kind of question now. So these are some slides. I have a series of slides I'm going to show you. We'll only kind of go through one or two maybe, but I will show you how I use them. There used to be a long time ago, back before internet days, back before computers, when we were testing students to placement, to decide what their levels were for oral skills, we gave these what were called the John and the Fred tests. And it was a whole series of tasks. They would have to look at pictures and form questions and give a statement, tell a story using the pictures and blah, blah, blah. Then there was a section on it called Ask Me. And then it was formed just like this. And I thought, ooh, this is actually a great teaching tool. Now, I would not use this to actually introduce the forms to the students. I think I'd probably stick with the grammar books a little bit to teach the form, but these are fabulous for practicing and then practicing with each other. Or if you have, classroom tutors in there, sometimes you do, you can use that. But so here's the thing, go ahead and type in the chat, make a question out of this. So ask me, I'm looking at the two guys here, right? Ask me if they are smiling. Okay, so go ahead and turn it into a question. Ask me if they are smiling. And can somebody read off what people write?
Are they happy is the first question I got.
Okay, or ask me
are
if
they smiling?
Yeah, there we go. Are
one?
they smiling? Are they smiling? That's what I'm looking for. It's really just kind of transforming it from a statement to this if statement to a question. And depending on the student's abilities to actually perform that task or not, depended on what level that they would end up in sometimes. So if you notice that all these questions here that I have here are all questions with B. So one thing, if you're going to try this, I recommend that the first few times you do it, you keep only the same kinds of questions on one sheet so that you don't confuse everybody. But then after they get that, then you can ratchet up the challenge, make it a little more difficult and challenging for them. So here's another one I have. Now this one starts asking a couple of different kinds of questions. Ask me if she's young, right? So some are be questions, but some are going to require do as the auxiliary verb, right? Like if she has any children and grandchildren. So not is she have any grandchildren, or but does she have any grandchildren? Okay, so this is just wonderful for practicing what they've already been learning. You can put them into groups and let them just start working on these back and forth together while you go around the room or you go into their breakout rooms, either way. And then just a couple of others. Ask your questions if she's happy, what's she doing, if she knows how to drive, same thing. This is now more of a mix of questions. But here, later, I'm going to talk about making the students the experts. So I have a whole group of Saudi and Yemeni students in my classes now and then last fall also. And I showed this picture. Now I originally thought, because I first saw this picture, I thought that this was from when, just a few years ago, when suddenly now it's legal for women to drive in Saudi Arabia. And I thought maybe that's where this picture came from. I just found it on the web. I don't know where it came from. But then my students said, they were like, oh, no. This woman is not Saudi. Absolutely not. And I was like, oh, great. Where is she from? And they didn't all agree exactly, although they finally came to the consensus. They decided she's Egyptian. And but they were very clear. And I didn't know, right? I'm not sure. And so I thought, okay, this is an opportunity for me to close my mouth, stop talking, and let them teach me something. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Here's another one. Ask me if he's a father, if he has a daughter, if she's crying. Okay. Is she crying? Is she cute? Is he proud? Blah, blah, blah. And the other thing that you can do with this, look, you can do all kinds of stuff with vocabulary, right? Is he wearing a checked shirt? Right? What does proud mean? Is he proud? So then that can, it creates a very natural context to introduce a huge amount of interesting vocabulary. Who took this picture? Well, we don't know. So then that's an opportunity for our students to speculate. Another one of the higher order learning skills, which we'll talk about later also. Now, here's another one that I really love doing with this one. I'm not kidding. I thought we were going to spend maybe 5 minutes on this picture, and 25 minutes later, they were still wanting to talk about it. And I had to kind of push the rest of my lesson to the next day. But there are so many things you can do. So you could just go on the web, find interesting pictures where there are lots of different details and questions that can pop into your mind. So this is technically a question exactly, but you can say, I said here, name every action you see them doing. But you could say, what actions are happening in this picture, right? For example, they are toasting the new year. Where could they be from? And then we have lots of possibilities. Tell as many things as you can about this picture in 1 minute. And then we go around the room and everybody says at least one thing. And one of the most fun things questions I asked with this picture that it was such a blast, was I said, what are their relationships to each other? And that conversation went on for 15 minutes about. And so my students decided finally, there was a lot of disagreement, but they finally decided and convinced each other that these two were boyfriend and girlfriend because of his, and I also, you ask why. So why? Here's another question, right? How do you know that? Okay, always follow up questions with, how do you know? Okay, that's a question we forget to ask our students often enough. I know I do. I often forget to say, why? Why do you think that? Why do you know that? How do you know that? Okay. And that's going to find out a lot more about their thinking process and how much they actually understand. Let's see. So what's their relationship? So my students decided these two were boyfriend and girlfriend. This guy maybe was her brother. She was maybe his sister, but maybe just a friend. And then they were all at a holiday, New Year's party or a Christmas holiday party together. Okay, and then they just started talking more and more. We started talking about what are they eating, what was served, what are they drinking, what are they saying when they say cheers to each other. So there's just a million questions you could come up with from one picture only, and that I just found on the web. I don't know these people. Okay, now quite a few of you and your early questions that you talked about a while ago were mentioning some things that come in this category. So discussion questions. Discussion questions are awesome. Now I teach speaking and listening classes. I teach other classes as well, but I focus a lot on speaking and listening classes. And one of the things I started doing quite a few years ago was asking them to just warm up, just starting the day off with a greeting. I give a title to the day, and then I put them into breakout rooms and give them a discussion question or two to talk about, to warm them up. Focus is on fluency, not accuracy. However, depending on how you make the question, we can elicit certain grammatical forms. So some of you were, I'm remembering now what you wrote in the chat a few minutes ago. How was your weekend, right? That's one of my favorite ones for Monday morning. So what are we eliciting there? Past tense, right? Past tense time markers, which is really important because a lot of research actually shows that what's happening, that they're actually maybe getting the verbs right, but the wrong time markers. So as teachers, we're not quite sure where's the confusion. Are they confused about the former, or are they confused about the time marker that goes with it? Things like over the weekend, last weekend, like I went to the movies next weekend, or I went to the movies this weekend. No, that one doesn't work. I went to the movies next weekend, right? So it's confusing for us as teachers because we're not sure exactly whether they're getting that right or not. So what did you do over the weekend? Are there any silver linings to this strange year of pandemic? Describe them for your group. Or in the fall, I had one class where I had, I think almost everybody in my group were lawyers of one kind. It was just this odd coincidence. We had a whole group of people from the e-law program. So I asked the question, what does justice look like? And they really, that one, they said, we're not done with this yet, teacher. We have to keep on going, teacher Lauda. So they did, and I gave them more time for it. So now, if you have some discussion questions that you could use that focus on fluency, but elicit some kind of specific either vocabulary or grammar form or time or some expression, go ahead and put them in the tab.
Waiting for the messages to come in. What are your top 5 favorite fruits?
Oh, that's a good one.
How have you changed in your routine over the pandemic? How do you stay healthy? What's the greatest experience you have had? What are humanity's biggest accomplishments?
Ooh, that's a big one.
How will you look when you get old?
Sure.
What did you forget to do yesterday?
I love that. I'm stealing that one. I love that. Thank you.
Do you like to exercise?
Excellent.
What's a smell that you love?
Oh, I love that question.
I need new movies to watch. What have you watched recently that was good?
These are awesome, you guys. These are just fantastic.
Okay.
Would you live up to 100 years? Oh, I love that one too. Yeah. When was the last time you hugged your relatives? Oh, yeah. These are fantastic questions. Now, just one little tip I would give you is, I'm not going to say don't use yes, no questions. Yes, no questions are okay, but just make sure that you add why or why not, or please explain. Because otherwise, what we say, I teach my students, and even my level 2 students know that I say, yes, no questions are a conversation killer. Do you like exercise? No. End of discussion, right? So we want to add little pieces that will help them give more information. All right, these are beautiful. Thank you so much. Oops. Did I just go to the next slide? So now, hold on, I need to move my chat again. I'm going to close that. So now we can also, though, use discussion questions for critical thinking. So that those previous ones were more for just focus on fluency. Oh, and I'm sorry, excuse me for one moment. I forgot to say one thing about that is that, and I did mention this last year too. So it's interesting that I've started doing these discussion questions several years ago now, and I've been doing it. And every term I'm with my students, I ask them, I give them a poll or a survey, and I ask them, do you want me to continue using these warm-up questions for discussion for the first few minutes of class? And I have them do it like 2 or 3 different ways. I have them ask me, maybe answer in chat. I have them answer verbally. And then I also have them make me a video telling me why or why not in more detail that just goes to me. And we can do that on our course website. So, and 100% of my students, 100% of the time, have answered, yes, we don't understand why more teachers aren't giving us these discussion questions and just giving us the chance to talk, because we can't learn how to talk unless we talk, right? You all learned English. You know you have to talk. And any of us who've learned any other language, how do we get better? By doing it. So we have to build in some time, and it doesn't have to be more than 5 minutes if you don't have that much time, but it's really worthwhile investment, and your students will, I can see my students' fluency levels going up every single week. It's really quite astounding. So now back to my discussion for critical thinking now. So that was fluency. Now we're going to think about going beyond comprehension questions. Now, nothing wrong with comprehension questions, right? Nothing wrong at all. However, if they're all we do, then we are really missing a huge opportunity to go beyond that and to promote critical thinking. Comprehension questions do not promote critical thinking skills. So how about instead try asking questions that assume comprehension, but then they ask students to do some further task, like write a new ending to this story, or with your partner, write 3 great discussion questions for the other groups about community service, because that's what we were talking about that day. Or create a dinner party with any of the characters that we have read about this term. Why are you including them? All right, so now's your chance to go ahead and put some in the chat, please, some discussion questions that you can think of that kind of push our students to use some of these higher order thinking skills that Bloom and Bloom's revised taxonomy talks about. And I have a beautiful chart for you in the handout that I will share with you towards the end for you to take with you and put to your files. But go ahead and put them in the chat. Let's see what we have. How can you make the world a better place for everyone? Whew. What talents did you discover you had during the pandemic? I love that. What can you do to improve your English? That's a really good one. And students share with each other. They share their tips, their strategies. That's a great idea. Let's see. Lynn Yerby, that's a cool one. What happens next? Ooh, that's kind of cool. Let's see. Oops, that one popped. I like to ask about the student's thoughts on the person who took the photo. Yeah, exactly. Why did he or she take the photo? What were they thinking? When we're describing scenes? I love that. How would you change the ending of the story? That is such a fun one to do. What has the pandemic taught you? I just did one for homework last week that was, you've got a time machine. You just bought or invented a time machine. Where are you going to go? What time period and why? And I can't believe how incredible. I mean, I was like almost crying because the things that they were sharing and telling about were so interesting and so creative and so cool. And I have a really mixed level class right now. Everybody from level 3 to level 7 in one class, which is very challenging. But everybody from level 3 to level 7 answered just so beautifully and with the most creative ideas. Let's see. Imagine you are part of the situation that appears in the image. Explain how you feel in this situation. Cool, Katie. Why do male soccer players get more attention and money than female soccer players? Awesome one. Very good. If you were the creator of the TARDIS, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I think that sounds like something that's online that I don't know. Oh, this is a fun one. If you could pick a superpower, what would it be and why? I also have them draw themselves and draw themselves in their superpower. And that's really super fun. So you get the idea. These are fantastic. You can please feel free to keep on adding to these so that when we save our chat, we'll have a just huge number of cool questions. Okay. Here's another thing, asking questions that we don't know the answer to. Okay, now I'm sorry that when somehow the slide got a little shifted around and you can't quite see the feather is back behind here. And when I give this slide to my students, they don't have this round thing. So they just see the rock and the feather. This is another one that I had no idea if this would work well or not. I just tried it last year for the first time. And they were like, no, teacher, we're not done yet. We're still talking. And so they had so many things to say about whether they were a feather or a rock. I don't know what they're going to say. I have no idea what they're going to say. And we had many rocks in the class and we had many feathers, and each got a chance to talk about why they were that one. So when we ask questions we don't know the answer to, we provide an opportunity for students to teach and to share with us and also a really great side benefit is that it allows us to model being a really good listener and a learner. And it's fun. It's so much fun. So I highly encourage you. Now, a little while ago, I said that somebody was prescient, meaning had the sixth sense, because here we go. Here's another question that I've had so much fun with. What color are you? Now, the person, whoever said that earlier, was talking, I think, about the day. What color describes your mood? And I think that's a little bit different from this one right here, which I love. So use them both. One is talking more about your mood, and the other one is more getting them to talk about their personalities a little bit. What color are you? Please explain your answer. But maybe they might answer, about how they're feeling that day too. It's open. Or, what animal are you? Please explain your answer. So these are really, really, really fun ones. And again, they're just more opportunities for us to draw out our students and then to learn from them. And when they see us learning from them, it just sparks their energy and sparks their imaginations, and they want to do better. They want to do well. Okay, here's another form. This is really fun. Now I actually have an entire presentation about working backward, but this is super fun to do, and you can do this with every level. So rather than asking the question, we give them the answer, and then they have to write the question. So let's try a couple of these right now together. So for example, I'm 61. What's a question that can go with that? This one's a little more limited. Might have a couple of answers I can think of. Let's see what we've got. Oops, chat. How old are you? That's sort of the first one that I can think of. Oh, okay, very cool, Monica. Are you 55? I'm 61. Exactly. Okay, that's a perfect one. Great example. Why are you 61? What? In fact, this is an old slide. I've had a birthday since then. What's your basketball jersey number? So cool. How many times have you been married? Awesome. Are you still young? How many times have you taught this class? Oh my gosh. Okay, you all get the award. I have never gotten more than about 4 or 5 answers for this question in different workshops. You are absolutely rocking it. What's your ticket number? How many times have you attended this seminar? How many times have you been to Italy? Oh my gosh, how many times have you taught this class? I love these. These are awesome. So these are fantastic. And let's see. And now we can try a couple of the others. Oh, you gave so many different examples. I don't need to give any more for the first one. How about I have 5. What's a question? How many siblings do you have? That's what I was thinking when I wrote it. Good. What number are you in? Oh, no, 61. Oh, okay. That one goes with the 61, I think, from Corina. And exactly that my students came up with that idea too. My student teachers, that what number are you? When you're like in the deli or the bakery or the market and you take a number and then they say, what number are you? I'm 61. Okay. That's possible too. How many books do you have? Good. I have 5. Good. 5 chocolate candles. How many cats do you have? How many cars do you have? How many books do you have? Wow, that's a different. Okay, that could be really fun in a class, right? How many cars do you have? I have 5. Wow, that's a lot of cars to have. How many books do you have? 5. Not so many books to have, right? So that could spark a whole discussion all by itself. How many fingers do you have on one hand? I love it. All right, you are all incredibly creative. This is just awesome. How many TVs do you have in your house? Excellent. All right, now what about this one though? I have 5, but no sisters. Again, do you have any siblings? Yeah, okay, good. I would say this statement might require an even more specific, slightly more specific question. Oh, how many friends do you have? Oh, I have 5. Let's do the one that says, I have 5, but no sisters. How many brothers do you have? Yeah, exactly. So that one might be a little more limited. So it might be kind of fun to try some that are really broad and we'll get lots and lots and lots of answers. And then some that are a little more limited and we'll maybe only get a few answers because the specific words might need to elicit just certain kinds of answers. There we go. Do you have younger brothers? Yeah, exactly. Great. So you get the idea. Now go ahead and come up with one of your own to share in the chat. You can put down an answer that just write the answer this time for us to think about different questions. Blue. Only one. Okay. It's red. One female, one male. Right? Aren't you intrigued? I'm so intrigued. I want to know more about this right away already. Yes, every day. I'm allergic since I was 4. Oh my gosh, you guys these are awesome. Suddenly, cats and dogs. It's white and black. Cats, dogs, and monkeys. Awesome. Italy, out in the country. It's a beautiful reptile. Okay, so keep putting these in here so that you can have some really fabulous ones to work with, but I think you're going to have a great time working with these questions. Students, not only have I've been doing this for years with my students, but at IPNA and yes, Mark, you were right, that is the BNC that I work for in Peru, in northern Peru. And it's, a lot of the teachers that I work with there have used this also. So I get to see it in action, and the students there love it, and they just do a fabulous job. Excellent, excellent. Since 2020, great. All right, you all have it. You've got the idea. These are fabulous. 10 times already, but you don't want to know the details. Oh, that's great. All right, moving on. Now, a different kind of question. So now turning away a little bit for a minute from our students and looking at our planning. Okay, so when we're planning our lessons, right? Our daily lesson planning checklist. So here are some questions that we can ask ourselves, and I call this notes to self. Okay, so I ask myself these questions every day. This is just kind of a checklist I have in my head, but I also keep it printed sometimes when I'm too tired and I can't think. Okay, after I've finished doing my lesson, then I look at it and I go through and I think, is this lesson as active as it can be? Am I making enough opportunities for students to be the experts? Is it well scaffolded, okay, meaning broken into doable steps that set the students up for success? How can I add more student agency? How can I build in teacher silence and make them the experts? Is there enough opportunity for personalization and practice? Does this plan recycle material from previously presented classes? Okay, am I recycling enough? Because I think teachers, that's a mistake a lot of us make. Often, I know I do. I have to remind myself to pull things back in and keep weaving it back in over and over again, because obviously we think, oh, we did that, we practiced, they got it that day, but that doesn't mean they learned it. We all know that. We all know they can do the exercise and match all the vocabulary perfectly, 100%, and then they walk out and they have no idea what those words mean and they can't use them. So are we recycling and giving them enough practice? Does this plan promote critical thinking skills? How? And am I making equal opportunities for all of my learners to thrive? Or am I forgetting and focusing only on like the higher level students, the ones who are very vocal and verbal? Or am I focusing too much on the ones who need more help, but I'm sort of not challenging the ones who are at a higher proficiency level? So these are all questions we can ask ourselves to help with our planning. Now, I encourage everybody, I think many of you here are already good friends with Bloom's revised taxonomy and the verbs that go with it. But I will share in just a moment. I'm going to show you really quickly what this looks like. Because Bloom's revised taxonomy verbs and criteria for supporting critical and higher order thinking tasks for our students, I use this checklist when I'm making my plans. So because I'm tired a lot of times, right? And we're busy and we forget and we get into these grooves. So what do I want to do? I want to be able to make sure that I'm doing sequencing or comparing, contrasting, or synthesizing, or analyzing, describing, interpreting, right? All of those great action verbs. So let me stop sharing for just a moment and do a new share. There we go. And can you see? Let me.
Yes.
So just quickly, just take a peek. Look at all these. This is just a beautiful chart. I've seen a million different Bloom's taxonomy charts, and I searched for a long time for one. This is on one page, and I love the way it's categorized, and I love the way it puts all of what you're going to ask them to do into the different categories here, right? So this is in the handout that we will be sharing later. I just wanted to go show you that so that you would know what I was talking about. Now, finally, here, a really, really important question that we have to ask ourselves also is talking about our own professional development, right? So as teachers, we absolutely have to be lifelong learners. And how do we do that? So we ask ourselves, what professional development will serve me best in the coming year? And how can I be a leader? Or how can I step up and improve my leadership skills? So I ask myself these questions. What do I want to learn more about? Okay, what am I feeling like I don't really know all that much and I would like to learn? What would be a good idea for me to learn about or how to do? Okay, I know this last year we've all learned a lot of new things with technology and Zoom and running things, and it's a lot smoother now than it was a year ago, right? What holes do I have in my training or education? So what I mean by that, for example, I went to a wonderful, wonderful graduate program in New York City. But interestingly, we didn't do a whole lot. They didn't have a lot of courses about teaching pronunciation. Now, this is a long time ago. Maybe now they do, but they didn't when I was going through. So I kind of felt like that was a hole in my education. So whenever I go to TESOL or any conferences, I make sure to attend as many teaching pronunciation sessions as I can so that I can improve my own skills in that area. What new learning can I take on this year? And how might I help my colleagues or institution or field of English language teaching? So these are all questions that we can ask ourselves. Now, it's interesting because I don't often anymore run across teachers like this, but I remember in the first few years I was teaching Shaping the Way We Teach English online. I had a couple of teachers who said, look, I don't really want to be here. I'm being told I have to be here. It seems like a great class, but I've been teaching for 35 years and I don't need professional development. And we convinced those teachers, like, no, I've been teaching forever and I need more now than I needed before. We teachers have to be lifelong learners and we have to keep learning new skills. Keeping up, technology is changing by the hour practically. So there's so much that we need to keep up on, and there's always more to learn. And we have to model being good learners. And we need to know what it feels like to maybe not be so sure and confident. So one of the things I tell my student teachers every year is, every year or so, you should try something as a teacher. Every teacher, every year, should try to learn something new, something like a new language you've never studied or some new skill, something that will help us remember what it feels like to be on that side of the desk, to not know what's going on, and as adults, to kind of sometimes maybe feel stupid, right? Well, we don't want our students to feel stupid, of course. So it's really important for us to kind of remember what we do and make opportunities for ourselves. Now, breakout room time. So I'm thinking maybe we could do like 12 minutes or so, something like that. Does that sound good? Okay, great. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do with your group. And you'll have the instructions for this, but you can also take a picture of the slide if you'd like. But what are we going to do? Hold on, I've lost my cursor. There we go. With your group, please choose 1 to 2 of any of the ideas from the right side of the screen. And from this presentation, and then share ideas that you have for how you can use these with how you have used them in the past, or brainstorm together ways that you can put them into action if you've never tried it before. And if time allows, you can talk about more than one. And over here on the right are all the different topics that I've just been talking about. So let's go for about 12 minutes. And then when we come back, we'll talk about takeaways and have time for questions too. So enjoy.
All right, so the idea here is that we really kind of enjoy our time with our partners, and Laura just gave us a million ideas. So let's try to really think about what's one of those that you could use, in your class the next time you have to teach, right? What's one thing that you could really kind of make practical in your session? So please talk with your partners, break the ice if no one's talking, right? And of course, if it's really noisy where you are, of course, be aware of your microphones. So I think Roberto's all set up, and I think he's going to send us right away. Okay, looks like all the rooms are closed and everyone is now back in the main room. I think, Laura, you're muted, so yep. There we go.
Okay, here we go. Thank you. My students always tell me that. Laura, you're on mute. Okay, so let's have a peek. Let's go to the next slide. What I'd like you to do now, we're going to get ready for the question and answer period. So now here's some time for you to say some questions. But while we begin taking them and start asking questions, and you can type your questions into the chat, I would ask you also to please write down at least one takeaway. What's one thing, one idea that you heard today or practice? Some people were talking about them in the groups I was seeing just now. What's one idea or practice that you will take away with you and use in your classes next week, or something that you've already been using? But I'm curious in particular, what is something that you learned today that you did not know or think about before tonight? And then while you're doing that, so just write your takeaway. And now, wink, 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 any questions? Let's open it up for questions. And Mark, I'm thinking you're going to help me out there.
Sure, absolutely.
Great.
So everyone, you can write your questions directly in the chat, and you can also just let us know if you want to say something. So if you want to talk to Laura, you can do that. So just tell us who you are, and we'll let you open your mics.
Looks like
a lot of takeaways here.
Okay. Jonathan raised his hand.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Jonathan. All right. Give me 1 second here, Jonathan. Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Laura, for such great presentation. I'm Jonathan. I'm an elementary school teacher and also university teacher here in Costa Rica. So it was great seeing you. My question is, how would you deal, because all of these activities are amazing and we were talking about accuracy, fluency, or critical thinking. So how would you deal with students? Because sometimes we have these groups that we bring these activities for, let's say, fluency, and they are so focused on accuracy. Or we bring them for critical thinking and they don't want to speak because they are shy. So how would you deal with that when you put an activity out there and students just don't want to talk or they don't want to participate? So how would you handle that, and what advice would you give to us?
Okay, great questions. I love these questions. So there are a lot of questions in there, so I'm going to take them apart a little bit. So I would say for really shy students, one thing that you can do is put them in smaller groups. I think that really helps a lot for them, or pairs. They feel a lot more confident talking with just one other person. I would also say, if you are putting them in any kind of summative sort of situation where there's a grade associated with the discussion, because that's one of the tests I have to give, is I try to put the people who have very similar skill levels in the same group, so that somebody who's at a lower proficiency is with other people who are also at the lower proficiency. And then people who are at the higher proficiency and need that challenge, they're together also. So I think grouping in similar proficiency levels is very helpful for that. Smaller groups for shy students. Now, if they're super focused on accuracy, I think you just have to make time, and you just have to say, don't worry about making mistakes. Make mistakes, make tons of mistakes. Just right now, we're not focusing on accuracy. Pay attention to your past tense verbs, but don't pay attention to a lot else. Just speak and don't just talk. And the thing is, if we do that every day, they will just start talking. Some will start right away. Some will start in week 2. Some may take all the way to like about half the term, but they might, like, watch them. Students who don't speak much, let's ask ourselves, are they not engaged? Are they unmotivated? Or are they actually engaged? They're just not ready to produce quite yet, but they're involved in really active listening, right? And if they're nodding or they're showing in some way that they are participating, we're doing great, okay? And we just keep encouraging them. So it's like, and then I think the way we structure our questions really helps. So small bits. Here's another tip. Sometimes when we ask questions of students, there are 2 possible problems. One, we have one specific answer in our head, but they can't figure out what we're looking for. So it's the expression in American English is it's met with crickets, meaning right? Nobody's actually saying, no, there's nothing, there's silence. Zoop, they're not saying anything. But then what ends up happening is if we make the question a little bit more specific or not general, not vague, then students can figure out what we're asking. So we have to look at our own questions too and make sure that they're worded really well. That's a great question. Thank you so much.
We also have another really interesting question here from Carla Espinosa. She's asking, is it possible to use critical thinking questions in summative evaluations? In particular, the challenge of, well, how do I know if they got the right answer? How do I narrow down the answer?
Oh, so that's so interesting. Well, I think I'd have to think about that, but here's one way that I do use it. Now, again, I'm teaching a lot of speaking, listening, communication skills. And one of the skills that our program has is, because we're a university and we're preparing our students to go to the university after our program. Not everybody does, but that's our objective in our, that's part of our mission. So we have to prepare them for that. So we have what we call a whole system of testing them, discussion skills tests, which basically gives them practice, teaches them how step by step, really beautifully scaffolded, step by step, how to have an academic discussion. So we start out with just things like, what's better? Okay, no, I'm going to start out with a statement. Chocolate is better than vanilla. Do you agree or do you disagree? Okay, and then in a face-to-face class, I'll say, if you agree, go over to this side of the room. If you disagree, go to this side of the room. Now on Zoom, we can't do that. So we use, if you agree, use the thumbs up. If you disagree, use the X or use the crying button. And then what they have to do is then they have to talk with each other and convince each other, share their reasons. They start talking. And so then they're going to actually be working on their critical thinking skills. Then we have discussion tests that we start building up to. And the final summative test of that is okay, now on Zoom, I do this. Here's how I'm doing it online. I also do this in the face-to-face class where we go, I come in, but I turn off my camera and I turn off my video. They have been from day one, from the first week, they've been writing discussion questions with each other, discussion questions for each other. They're learning how to do that. We practice expressions of agreement. So for example, I agree with you, not I'm agree with you. Or how to disagree politely. So we deal with that socio-pragmatic skill of how do we teach you how to disagree politely, right? We want you to disagree because that's a great American value, but we also want you to do it really politely and respectfully for everybody. So we can do that. And then I end up I have them in a circle. They've come, they've had practice tests, and we build this up. I don't even do this until week maybe 4. But what we've been doing is we've been building up all the skills necessary to have this discussion step by step and piece by piece. And the questions that we have been giving, that I've been giving them the whole term right from the beginning, are ones that they write themselves, but also I always insert all kinds of critical thinking questions. But then, so then they get points for sharing an opinion, asking a question, bringing somebody into the conversation, agreeing, disagreeing, politely and respectfully, and all the other stuff. So that's a possible way that you can do it.
So Marias has a question as well. She's saying, we're always looking for fluency and accuracy, but what can we do when the student's fluency is much better than their accuracy? How do we correct them? If there's really no space to correct them, I guess, because of how fluent they are, without totally ruining the momentum of the conversation.
I love that question. And actually it's very funny because my work partner and I are working with a group of teachers in Brazil right now. And we created a video about error correction in which she played the teacher and I played the student, and the teacher was overcorrecting all the time, like just correcting. And the student, me, just pretending at that point, goes through the whole thing, like starts off all happy and everything, but then by the end it's like, so frustrated, right? So I think when we're dealing with fluency and accuracy, first of all, I think we really want to promote fluency, because that is absolutely where they're, that's going to raise their motivation and get them really into it. And then they can start dealing with the accuracy stuff later. My feeling is, if we can understand you, you're doing great. If we can understand your questions and your answers, you're okay. Now, what I do all the time is, as a speaking listening teacher, I have my students make me videos. Like almost every night for homework, I have them making me a 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 minute video, depending on which level they are. And they end up saying things, they end up just coming up with really, really great stuff. And it just works out really well. So, sorry. I actually forgot my point. It flew out of my head. I was trying to think it for one moment and I couldn't grab it back again. I'll probably get it in just a moment. But accuracy, I got it. Here's what we don't want to do. You can't overload them with things. So in my videos, in my students' videos, we have this little speed grader tool where I can just type feedback right, like I can listen to their video and then type feedback right into it. So and I can also make my own videos back to them, which is great for pronunciation or other things. So then I'll talk for a moment. I'll just do like I'll make a couple comments about the content of what they talked about, what I really loved about their ideas, or what I thought were really interesting or great questions or whatever. And then I'll say, here are a couple of suggestions. And I don't say corrections, I just say suggestions or tips. And then I give them maybe 2 or 3 of the most salient, most important things that I think might help them and that might make them be able to progress. Now, like one thing we're working on is my students all, like 100%, it doesn't matter where they're from, they all say things like, it's depend on blah, 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 blah. Right? We've all heard this as teachers. And so I was like, by the time you get out of this course, you're going to be saying it depends on, not it's depend, but it depends on. So, and it becomes just sort of a class joke, or sometimes now we're in week 8, right, of a 10-week term. So I'll just, if I hear it depends on, it depends or whatever, I'll just say, and then they correct themselves. So little by little, they're starting to do it. But we can't overload them with too many corrections because they can't take it in. I also think it's critically important that we do not ever interrupt their speech to correct them for 2 reasons. 1, it's rude. It's just rude, right? And 2, they can't hear them. I have a way of phrasing this. I remember I wrote this when I was in graduate school 1,000 years ago, that I don't think that speakers can actually hear the corrections when it's still hot with their breath. But one of the things I've seen so much that's really cool that teachers all over the globe are doing is what they'll do is the teachers are walking around listening while the students are in groups or in breakout rooms, either one. And then we're noting down a few things, or we're taking them from their homework or from their videos. And then we can create a document with a whole bunch of sentences or whatever that have very common mistakes that everybody's making, or things that are, or something that you want to bring up. And then we put them up on the board screen. Nobody knows who said them. Nobody knows who said them. They're anonymous. And then we put them to, we say, okay, have fun, you guys. Correct these now. Work in pairs together and correct them. And oh my gosh, they love this. They love this. It's I think because it's like a puzzle that they get to do. And so it's like solving mysteries, solving puzzles, and they get to work on it together. So it's really super fun. So I highly recommend you do it and focus on accuracy a lot more than you might think. Now I know it's hard because we've got all this curriculum that's like, boom, 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 boom. We got to do this. We got to do this, right? So, but we have to push back a little bit and really focus on fluency.
Well, we haven't got any other questions. There was a question about the app that you use for giving feedback immediately. I'm assuming that's your kind of university.
That's on Canvas, yeah.
Canvas.
We use Canvas, and
Okay.
so it's on there. But I think there's all kinds of tools like that. And yeah, so let's see, what else? Okay, no, yeah, that's one we did. Yeah, I think we got all the questions. Anybody else?
Yeah. Lots of positive feedback. So if there's a final question or even a comment that you'd like to make, now's the time. You can open your microphones as well if you like.
Oops. There we go. Oh, thank you. Contagious energy. I'm like a rash. Thank you so much. You should have seen my mother. My mother was a ball of energy, and so was my grandmother. Oh, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm about to cry, okay? But you are all amazing. Yeah, this is my mother's aquarium. Eh? Nice, right? Let's see if I can do this without. Isn't this beautiful? It's really cool. Oh, thank you, everybody. So I hope that you all have just a fabulous rest of your conference. I wanted to say too that here you are, the last session of the day. Here you are late at night, and you are all here. You're not off somewhere else, watching TV or reading a book or taking a walk or anything. You are here doing professional development. Let's see. Anybody have a final question? Are we still have another minute or two?
I think we have just final seconds.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're sharing lots of very nice things. And we
So
wanted to say that Laura did create a really great handout for you guys. We'll share that in here as well. And it's also available in the community of practice. And of course, we're going to post her video there. You can find the video recording that she did last year. All new ideas if you weren't there. She didn't repeat. So there's plenty of content if you want to see more of her. And she's also planning to come back for one of our PD talks towards the end of this year. So we're really pleased about that. So here in the chat, this is the link to the handout that she created, really summarizing all of the really important parts of her session. So we just want to say thank you so much, Laura, for taking the time to come back and be with us. It's our nighttime, but it's your nighttime too. You could be enjoying doing other things. So we really appreciate you, taking the time to be with us.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor and a privilege to be with you all. I think the teachers of Costa Rica are amazing, but also there are teachers from elsewhere here too. So yeah. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been just amazing.